Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's APMG Midday Mentor Session. I'm Suchitra from APMG in Bangalore, and today I have with me Avinash Singh from Fox IT in India. Welcome, Avinash, to today's session.
Well, thank you very much, Suchitra. It's absolute pleasure and honor being a part of this Midday Mentor webinar program series. Yeah.
Thank
How are
you
you
so
doing,
much,
otherwise?
Avinash. I'm doing well and hope you're fine too.
Likewise.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Right. So Avinash has been closely associated with APMG India for a while now. And today he's here with us to share his experience and thoughts on the BRM role and what BRM or business relationship management is all about. And so Avinash, before we can actually start off, our discussion, it would be great if you can share with our listeners a bit about yourself and your background.
Sure, Suchitra. Hi, everyone. My name is Avinash. I work with an organization called Fox IT. I'm a principal consultant and a coach in the domain of IT service management, business relationship management, and lean IT. And I'm a passionate evangelist of business IT convergence.
Right. Thank you, Avinash. That's been great. So Avinash, the topic for today, what we're discussing and sharing thoughts is business relationship management. So the question is, what is business relationship management, and what exactly can our listeners understand from that?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I think it's very important to understand that before understanding what business relationship management is all about, we should also understand what business relationship management is not all about. Yeah. So there's a myth, there's a big myth in the industry, Suchitra, that business relationship management as a concept is only meant for sales and marketing folks. Yeah. So that's a very incorrect or incoherent wrong myth that we have. And probably as part of this discussion, we'll be able to kind of demystify that myth once and for all. Second is that BRM as a concept is only leveraged in external environments where you have an external service provider and a customer relationship kind of an ecosystem. So that's also kind of a partially correct myth. We are going to demystify that as a part of discussion. Now coming to what exactly business relationship management is all about. So if you look at the concept of business relationship management, it basically embodies the competencies, which are basically your knowledge, your skills, your behavior, your culture, your attitude, that fosters value producing and strong relationships between business partners and the provider functions such as IT, HR, finance, and etc. Right? So the notion about business relationship management, or in one word, if I can describe business relationship management, it is all about convergence. Convergence is the mantra of relationship management.
Right. So you spoke about convergence, right? So what is convergence? And we just would like to hear some more thoughts on your insights on what exactly is convergence in this context.
Oh, fantastic. I think, and I'm glad that you asked, because convergence is a word that we don't often use in our day-to-day vocabulary, right? In the organization's vocabulary or semantics as well. So in simple words, convergence means thinking together, acting together, and achieving together. As I mentioned earlier, where BRM is basically a concept which leverages and brings the business partners and provider functions such as IT and together or closer to each other, right? So convergence is the epitome of intimacy in terms of relationship between business and IT provider functions. By convergence, we mean that right from day one, when the business strategies are formulated, IT and other provider functions such as HR and finance are part of that planning in terms of thinking. So they make sure that in terms of the overall business strategy, there are no separate strategies in convergence for IT and HR. The business strategy is the ultimate strategy, and these provider functions enable their capabilities and ensure their capabilities enable the achievement of business strategy through business capability road mapping and other specific techniques and ways. So they work as one team. From an acting together perspective, they make sure that from a value management perspective, from a demand management perspective, they are working closely with each other and making sure that they are focusing on those initiatives which really add value to the overall enterprise. and they work as one team. And achieving together means that they have shared ownership of risk and rewards, right? And since they are planning together, they are strategizing together, there's a sense of ownership amongst various teams, cross-functional teams within the organization, to make sure that there is a shared ownership towards risk, rewards, and achievement as part of the overall planning. This is in simple word what convergence means. And very interesting, Suchitra. Organizations which can think, in which the cross-functional teams can think, act, and achieve together, have a 4x multiplier effect in terms of achieving their business outcomes than the other organization. This was a study done by one of the leading research organizations of the world. Okay. That's what the power of convergence is all about. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. So it's all about working together and achieving together.
Absolutely. Right. And it doesn't matter, right? I think whether you're an internal IT provider function or an external provider function, it doesn't matter, because your objective is that you are working as one team towards one common purpose of making your business win or making your enterprise win in this highly competitive marketplace.
Right. So what you're saying is both internal providers and external providers can benefit from BRM.
Absolutely, bang on. You absolutely got the essence right, Suchitra. Right. And it's very interesting. If you look at the way organizations adopt the concept of BRM, there are three different ways in which the organizations can leverage this concept. So the first concept is more of having business relationship manager as a role within the organization, which primarily focuses on having an explicit role or an implicit role, not a person who's called as a business relationship manager, but playing the roles and responsibilities of business relationship manager, who's trying to drive business and IT convergence within the organization, right? Who's acting as a bridge, as a connector, orchestrator, and navigator between the business partner and the business units and the provider functions such as IT, HR, and so on. Yeah. The second way is more of a discipline-oriented way. Okay. Where in addition to the role, you have a process framework, you have a set of tools and techniques which anyone in the organization can learn and apply. And it's slightly more effective way of just doing the role. We have role plus discipline built into the ecosystem. So that standardizes the overall relationship experience in the ecosystem. The third, which is very interesting and the most impactful way, is what we call adopting BRM as a capability. Yeah, and I think organizations have really converged well, or which are being convergent and have achieved this apex of intimate relationship between business and IT provider functions, are those organizations which have the vision, intent, and are committed to building BRM as a capability in the ecosystem. So I'll try to throw some more light on the capability bit. If you look at capability, capabilities, I can break this two words into a single word in 2 words. Capability can be thought of capacity plus ability. So I think capacity can be in terms of time, effort, management's vision, budget, commitment towards building the BRM capability within the organization. Yeah, and ability is the skill, the competencies, the right skill set of people that we have who are going to drive this business IT convergence within the organization. But people with the right skill set, competencies, processes, that brings in the ability element of it. And if I can say so in simple words, the role and the discipline are kind of doing convergence bit of it. Whereas the capability, which is the most impactful state of adopting BRM, is being convergent. So we are convergent by DNA. It's in your DNA, it's in your genes of the organization. And that's what really creates a lot of difference. And again, both have their own, or all three ways have their own benefits, pros and cons, but the most impactful state is BRM as a capability.
What kind of organizations are embracing the benefits of BRM from what you see?
Yeah, I think it's a very pertinent question, Suchitra. If you look at it, in terms of the scale of the organization, what we have looked at and the value that we have created for organizations in terms of BRM space, right from Fortune 100 to G2000 companies are adopting and embracing the concept of business relationship management. Okay. Organizations across different industry verticals, such as banking and financial services, automobiles, IT service providers or managed service providers, aviation, for that matter. So it's a phenomena which is really taking off globally across multiple industry verticals, across multiple sizes of organizations in terms of small scale, medium scale, and large scale. And I think all of them are benefiting from this phenomena of convergence, as we call it.
Right. And Avinash, you also mentioned, if I go back to what you mentioned, spoke about competency development. It's a key part of, capability development. So how can organizations go about in terms of actually, building competency in terms of professional qualifications? So, who's the target audience for the BRM workshops and the qualifications?
Yeah, I think it's it's a very good point, because if you look at the way BRM capability evolves into a particular organization, there are various stages into it. So and I think irrespective of the stage of the evolution that you are when you're building up your BRM capability, competency development is a cornerstone for having the right set of capabilities built into the organization's ecosystem, especially for scaling up your BRM capabilities across the enterprise. So if you look at it, there are two professional qualifications or certifications, if I can say so, which are in the BRM space, right? The foundation one is what we call the Business Relationship Management Professional Foundation, right? Now this is a qualification or a certification, and this workshop primarily focuses on the what element of business relationship management. So it introduces the concepts of the vocabulary that organizations which want to drive convergence within their ecosystem should use. And I think vocabulary is such an critical part of getting the right mindset of convergence within the ecosystem, right? It also talks about the fundamental elements of business relationship management. It introduces the concepts of various tools of the trade that business relationship managers should have. And then it talks about 6 core competencies, which are universally called as the gold standard of core competencies that good and effective business relationship managers should have, such as strategic partnering, portfolio management, powerful communication, provider domain, business transition management, and these kind of competencies are kind of explained and developed, nurtured, and advanced within the delegates through the BRMP Foundation course. So the BRMP Foundation course helps delegates understand what the concept is of BRM is all about, what are the competencies that they should have as a business relationship manager or as an aspiring business relationship managers that they need to develop. And it also teaches them tools of the trade to be an effective and efficient business relationship manager within their organization. The CBRM course, which is called as a Certified Business Relationship Manager Practitioner course, is more focused on the how part. Yeah. So if you look at once the delegates have a strong understanding and the fundamental understanding of the concepts, the tools, and the techniques, the CBRM practitioner guide and the qualification gives them direction on how they can go about and start building the BRM capability ground up within their organizational landscape. So it's much more, it's the duration of the course for BRMP is 3 days, whereas the duration for the CBRM course is for 5 days. So the additional days are more towards the exercises that we do, the application elements of the concepts that we have learned in BRMP, and are kind of are recapped and re-summarized again in the CBRM courses, which ensures that the delegates can go back in their organizations and implement these strategies and these assessments, and then can create a customized journey map for the convergence within their organization. Yeah.
All right. So, which means to say, CBRM is mostly for people who are already practicing BRM in their role, right?
Correct. You're absolutely right. If you look at the global numbers as well, Suchitra, globally there are almost 8,500 plus professionals who are qualified in business relationship management professional, right? And the numbers are growing as we speak. Look at it, right? And nobody best to observe this as part of the APMG landscape, right? So, and if you look at the number of CBRMs that we have globally, it will be around 1,000, yeah, and 1,000 or around that number, if I can say so. So the idea about that is that BRMP as a concept or as a science, if I can say so. Earlier, the understanding of business relationship management was that it's more of an art. By your experience, by your rich experience and wisdom, it was thought that people who are skilled and experienced by default will be good in relationship management. But the beauty and I think a lot of credit should go to the BRM Institute, right? What they did was they codified this art into a science as well. So that organizations, irrespective of their industry vertical that they are part of, irrespective of their size of the organization and the scale of the organization, organizations have a method in the madness on how they can go about business IT convergence or business HR convergence within their organization by following these well-researched and proven best practices codified in the BRM body of knowledge.
Right, yeah. Avinash. I mean, that's been so much of information that you've given us, and it's like there's a lot of wealth of information. So I would like to ask you now, what is your approach to deliver the course? You know, whether it's BRMP or CBRM, how do you actually go about delivering that actual course?
Yeah, I think the underlying principle of all our workshops for BRMP and CBRM is putting theory into practice, Suchitra. Yeah. Right, because otherwise it becomes a pure play examination passing exercise, and delegates are happy with the certificate, but they were unable to adopt and adapt some of these best practices that have been so beautifully researched by BRM Institute and codified into this qualification schema by APMG. It's very critical that they have certain implementation takeaways as part of the workshop, and that's the outcome that we want to start with. So we always start. If we are conducting a corporate or a dedicated workshop for an enterprise customer or an individual, we always start with the purpose of them attending this course. Yeah, on what is that they want to achieve from this course. And then we make a very context-sensitive delivery, and we tailor our approach, making sure that the critical components of the BRMP qualification and CBRM delivered, along with the adoption and adaptation purpose that the delegates want to achieve from learning the workshop. So we follow what we call a four-staged approach in our delivery model, Suchitra, and with the new way of delivery, right? I think we have tailored it and we have digitized this learning model and delivery model. We call it a learning, application, reflection, and sharing model. So our approach is, first they should understand the fundamentals, understand the why behind it, and the what behind it. Then we focus on the how bit, where we have created tailored, customized scenarios and case studies for both BRMP as well as CBRM workshops. But they can apply what they have just learned. Then we reflect together, right? As a team, we reflect together. And then we make sure that there's a 30, 60, 90-day plan, which they have as a part of this workshop, which they can go back to their organization. They can implement and adapt this 30, 60, 90 and share it along with their peers and colleagues as well. And all of this we do in using the best-in-class digital technologies, such as the whiteboard canvas, where we make sure that we map the organization structure, and then we see how the BRM capability can be built, or how the current BRM capability is operating in their current landscape. And that makes the entire learning experience very, very personalized and tailored learning experience for the delegates, which really benefits the organizations immensely.
Right, so customized and tailored learning. Plus, I like the point where you mentioned about the follow-up which you give them to go back and actually the 30, 60 and 90-day plan. So that is actually another effective way for them to go forward after their training.
Oh, absolutely. And we also request our delegates that we are there. It's not a transaction, right? If we are still teaching and we are preaching about business relationship management, this relationship should not get over by the training transaction itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should practice what we preach. So we always tell them that we are always available to you. We do reinforcement sessions for the delegates and for the enterprises for whom we have delivered these sessions to make sure there's a momentum within the organization if they're trying to adopt and build up the BRM capability within the organization, right? And if you look at all the organizations that we have the fortune of sharing our knowledge and experience for business relationship management, a lot of these organizations had some common challenges that they were facing, and they wanted to address that by leveraging the BRM capability and then knowing more about the concept of convergence within their organization. Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure that's been extremely successful because we've seen the lovely digital badges being shared on LinkedIn by the successful candidates. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So, absolutely.
Yeah. So, Avinash, so you've actually conducted a lot of workshops and trained so many students and candidates. So, according to you, if you can just let our listeners know, what are the top 3 or maybe even top 5 takeaways that delegates gain from attending the course?
Oh, I think there are so many, Suchitra. This is the toughest question, if I can say so, right? I think identifying the top 5. Okay, so I'll go with the top 5 in that case, okay. Suchitra. I think the first thing that the delegates realized at the end of the first day of the BRMP or BRMP workshop specifically, because this is their first formal interaction with the convergence phenomena, is that they realize that relationship management is everyone's job. It's not that you have to be a business relationship manager only to focus on the relationship management element, right? So be it a service delivery manager or a project manager or a CIO or a head of application management division, relationship management is an integral part of everyone's job within the organization. That's the realization that they have, and say, yeah, and we do some exercises where we talk about what are the activities a typical relationship manager does, and then they realize, oh yeah, we do some of these activities. So that's a realization and discovery that they have, which they say, oh, it makes sense now. The second thing that they also learn as part of this is that relationship management as a competency can be developed, nurtured, and advanced for aspiring as well as existing stakeholders who are doing relationship management within the organization. Whether they are called as business relationship managers or not, that's a different story altogether. So they realize that, okay, these are the 6 areas or domains or competencies where I need to focus on, and these are the techniques and the tools of the trade which will help me to enhance my competency in this specific area, and that acts it helps them to assess their current level of capability and also kind of create a tailored roadmap on what are the areas that they need to work upon as a team or as a professional to become an effective business relationship manager. The third are various tools and techniques that we and the models that we talk about in the course. So I think one of the favorite models, and my personal favorite, if I can say so, Suchitra, is when I'm conducting the workshop, is the concept of business relationship maturity model. Okay. So it talks about how when I came across this model back in 2016, I was completely blown away by this model because it's such a fabulous visual depiction and a kind of research that has gone in so thorough that it really impacts and influences anyone who is attending the BRMP or CBRM workshop. It talks about gauging the maturity of the relationship between the business partner or the what we in the traditional world we used to call customers and the IT provider function and the HR function, and how you can not only qualitatively but quantitatively gauge the level and the maturity of the relationship that they have within them. And it acts as an assessment tool. It also acts as an aspiration tool for the organization, where we talk about 5 levels, like from ad hoc to what we call a kind of a trusted advisor or the strategic partner, which is the epitome of relationship. So there are 5 levels. We start from ad hoc to an order taker to a service provider to a trusted advisor, and then to a strategic partner, which is the epitome of relationship, where the business partners and ITs are converged together, and they can create maximum value for the enterprise, right? Or optimize business value at the max at that level. So a lot of people realize that traditionally their viewpoint was to become a good service provider, and it was such a suboptimal goal. there are 2 more levels that they should
about that.
aspire for to really create value for the enterprise. So I think that's one of the favorite takeaways for the delegates. Then the concept of value management. Yeah, if you look at Suchitra in the industry, almost 70 to 80% of the digital transformation initiatives fail, right? And because they are unable to articulate and deliver the realized value which they intend for business and the technology functions for, because they were working in more alignment mode. And I think when we talk about the concept of value management, it really rings a lot of bell with the delegates, because they realize that value has to be defined upfront rather than being measured only in terms of on time, on budget. It has to be much more business driven and defined by business, right? And measured throughout the transformation journey to make sure that the intended and the realized value, there's not too much of variance between the two. And the last but not the least is the strategic partnering approach, which gives them step-by-step process on how they can achieve the strategic partnership position that we spoke about in the business relationship maturity model just a while ago, where they can achieve level 5 relationship, what we call the strategic partner relationship. And what is the mechanism behind it? It gives them a step-by-step phases, activities, and techniques on how they can go about it. Again, it has to be tailored as per the organization's ecosystem and landscape, but it gives them a beautiful framework to start with and to improve upon their convergence journey, depending upon where they are at this point of time. So these 5, I think personally, there are more. I can go on and on, because the concept is and the content is so immensely useful for the organizations and the professionals, Suchitra. But again, top 5, if you ask me, I don't know, probably I'm thinking, are there more? But yeah, I think more or less.
I'm sure there are, but yeah. Right, and that was really very explicitly explained. Yeah, you were saying.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think again, the passion that we have for the domain, right? And it's not just because we do BRMP workshops and CBRM workshops. That's the reason we are passionate about it. We have seen the difference that it makes in the organization's ecosystem, in terms of mindset, in terms of actions, in terms of collaboration, right? In terms of an approach, is immense. And it's way different from the earlier notion of alignment, where what business used to ask, it used to align them, and it's such a reactive approach. Whereas convergence is much more tightly ingrained, and business and IT working as one team and creating customer value. So a passion flows from the impact that we have seen within the organizations of leveraging these best practices and concepts explained as part of the BRMP and CBRM content.
Right. Thank you, Avinash. That's been an amazing session with you, and you shared so much of information and knowledge, and I'm sure our listeners are going to benefit a great deal from this. It's been a pleasure to have you on our session today, and I wish you the very best for 2021. Thank you so much.
Well, absolute pleasure. Thank you, Suchitra. I thank you so much. And to all our viewers again, to you as well, Suchitra, and to all our viewers, a very happy New Year 2021. Have a fabulous year ahead. And as part of this broadcast and this particular message, my contact coordinates should be shared with you, right? In terms of my email address or my LinkedIn profile. If you have any question, if you're curious about BRM, right? If you're curious about your career as a BRM, or if you are playing the role of BRM, and if you have some clarifications, or if you want a springboard to bounce off your ideas with, right? If you're adopting BRM, please feel welcome to contact me, and I'll be happy to share whatever little I know with all of you, for sure.